So today I want to talk about a recent suspension upgrade we made to the coach. We've had this coach for about 2 years, and I've put about 20,000 miles on it, traveling 40 plus states. And you know, though the suspension was fine for the first couple of years, about 9 months ago I started getting pretty interested in the idea of having a suspension upgrade. And so when I started looking at that last fall, I started seeing quite a few different options for that. You can steering stabilizers, torsion bars, track bars, aftermarket airbags, and some things called Sumo Springs. Some of those kits can end up costing about $2,500, and that was a little beyond what I was wanting to spend at the time. The airbags were also in that same price point, and though they seemed like a great idea because that's what you're trying to do, is make it drive more like a diesel coach with their airbags, but aftermarket airbags, you'd have to be monitoring the pressures all the time with a secondary pump, and it'd be a lot more maintenance because they wouldn't necessarily hold that pressure, especially if you have a lot of different climates and temperatures. And so the Sumo Springs started becoming more and more interesting to me because they're basically like an airless airbag. And the price point on it was more affordable too. They're about $600 a pair, so about $1,200 in parts to do all four corners of the coach. And the reviews I was seeing at the time were very favorable. People were talking about how it was an amazing improvement to their suspension, and that was getting me pretty excited for sure. They also seem like they're very easy to install, and that was also enticing to me. And I had thought about just buying the parts myself and installing them, but you know, time goes on and it's tough to find the amount of time you need to make an installation like that, especially as a full-timer with limited tools, no shop, and you know, a moderate level of mechanic skill, but not a top mechanic. So I let it go by for a few months, and then there was a really great article in MOTORHOME magazine. I think it was February 2016 issue, and we're going to go ahead and put a link down at the bottom so that you can get all the detail on that, because it was really well written, and there's a lot of technical details in there that I'm not going to go into, because though I have some skill and experience with this, I definitely wouldn't consider myself an expert on suspension. And it's a great article. That got me even more excited, and I just wanted it even more, because then even though the suspension was fine for me the first couple of years, after reading about all these upgrades and how much improvement you can see, the suspension started bothering me more and more. You know, when you brake, you see some nosedive. When you see any kind of off camber, if a lane change or any kind of off camber thing in the lane, you really get a lot of side to side wobbling. And like, especially going in and out of gas stations or driveways and stuff like that. Any bumps, you feel them a lot. In crosswinds, the coach will really lean and sway, and it takes a lot to bring it back to center, so you find yourself fighting quite a bit. You might have seen some of our other videos, like our experience driving a gas RV or windy day, both of which will speak a little bit to what it's been like to drive this coach in the last couple of years. I've never been a white knuckle experience driving the coach, but I've been driving across Kansas today, and the winds have been pretty high, and I've been doing a lot of one-handed and even, you know, just a few fingers on the wheel, even with the winds, which is very different from when I've driven in those conditions in the past. And so seeing all these positive reviews really got me excited, because it seemed that they were going to be remedying a lot of the driving issues with the suspension I'd had in the past. So I was really looking forward to it and started pricing them out more and more. So we recently went to Tiffin Service Center, and we were inquiring about them because we had heard that that's a factory installed option now. And so that actually gave me even more confidence that they would really be a great fit for our coach, because if they're installing them as an option upgrade, that's, I thought, was a really great sign. We asked if they would install them while we were there, And though they install them on the brand new coaches as an option, they do not install them aftermarket, but they gave us recommendation of a local shop, and so we gave them a call, and the price was great. As I mentioned, there's $600 a pair, so you're talking $1,200 in parts, and this shop offered to do them for $1,450 installed. And from what I'd read, professional mechanic, it should take 3 to 4 hours to install, and that's exactly what we saw. We're going to put a link at the bottom, and if you're really mechanically inclined, and especially if you have a shop and all the tools to do this yourself, you could certainly save yourself a few $100s by installing yourself. You know, the coach, I'll explain a little bit about how the installation process goes in just a minute, but we're going to put the link at the bottom so you can buy the parts and do it yourself. Basically, what's involved in installing these is you'd lift the coach up off the ground with its own hydraulic jacks, and most likely going to be needing to remove a wheel. You're going to need a really good drill, because you're going to have to drill. Unless it's a brand new frame that has holes pre-drilled, you're probably going to have to drill through the hardened steel with a 3/8 inch bit to be able to bolt these on. Because the Sumo Spring, to help you get a visual of it, it's a polyurethane airless airbag. So if you can imagine a squishy polymer or polyethylene bag about this big that bolts to the chassis and then also bolts to the axle. And so when you start to lean side to side, this little thing starts squishing, and so it resists right from the beginning. So you don't get the big sway because it's immediately starting to resist, and then the more it squishes, the more resistance it applies. So it helps stabilize it substantially. So, as I mentioned, you're going to bolt this to the frame and bolt it to the axle, and you're going to have to do that on all 4 corners. For me, especially being a full-timer and not having the tools, having a professional install it was well worth it, because it's a lot of heavy stuff moving the wheels around, and I didn't have the drill bits, but I know there's a lot of people who could easily install this themselves in a weekend. We were super happy having the professional installation, and I have to say, I could notice a difference in this coach before I even left the parking lot of that shop. I mean, it was a gravel parking lot, and as I mentioned, I've had this coach for 20,000 miles all across the United States. I've driven every kind of road surface with this coach, so I have extensive experience, and like I said, immediately I could tell they were going to be amazing. And I drove back the same way I drove to the shop, and it was more of a rural road, and it had a lot of tight corners, and on the way there the coach was leaning really hard. Let me tell you, I don't know if everyone understands the term pucker factor, but when in the past, if you go even close to those yellow recommended signs, you're going to experience some pucker factor in a gas coach on the cornering. With these Sumo Springs, that is dramatically reduced. I'm very comfortable riding right up to those recommended speeds, and a couple times I've even gone over. I've put about 500 miles on it, been 5 different states with these Sumo Springs in the last couple of weeks since we had them installed, and I have to say, it truly is a game-changing upgrade. It's a huge improvement in every aspect of handling. The nosedive, the side-to-side wobbling, steering, stabilizing in windy conditions, and road holding. When you go on a corner, it holds its stage. And I think one of the biggest things, I've been putting a big couple days of driving it, and I've noticed I have far less fatigue and far more confidence and comfort driving this coach. Is it like a diesel coach with full airbags? No. But has it narrowed the gap substantially? Unquestionably. And that's part of where we're at with buying a gas coach, is the equivalent year version of this coach, trim level and year in a diesel pusher was $50,000 more. And Granted, with that $50,000 more, what do you mostly get? You get more power with the diesel engine. You get way better handling because of all the air suspension. You get improved braking from air brakes and increased carrying capacity. But to me, the biggest difference was the handling from the air suspension. And I have to say, for only $1,500, this has probably bridged the gap. I would say more than half the gap that in handling that we had experienced before. It's a huge improvement in the handling and road holding and feel of the coach for a very small amount of money in comparison. Is it all the way equal to being a diesel coach? No. Is it really possible to take a leaf spring suspension and make it handle like that? Probably not. But for this amount of money, I'm very excited about the improvement. So being a Class A coach, they're much taller. You know, we're almost 13 feet tall, and we run right at the max weight for this coach as well. So our suspension was pretty taxed, and with having these Sumo Springs installed, it just feels so much more in control and safer. I'm imagining this is a very large improvement for safety of the vehicle, especially if you're going to be anywhere near the gross max vehicle weight on your vehicle. And so the question becomes, would I recommend them to everybody? Not necessarily. I mean, it's a personal choice. For us, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I spent that money. It's been worth every penny and more. But we're in a different position than a lot of people. We full-time, and so we spend more time in our coach than other people. And $1,500, though it was a fair bit of money for us to spend, it was definitely worth it for us, and we could afford it. And that's the biggest expense we've had on this coach in 2 years is a suspension upgrade. If you only part-time, if you only use your coach occasionally, or if you're totally fine with how it handles, then it might not be worth that. As I mentioned, I went 2 years and 20,000 miles without him. I was okay without him, but I have to say I'm going to be a whole lot more excited about driving this coach for the next 2 years, the next 20,000 miles with the suspension upgrade, because it's a big change. And it was interesting because the shop called me a few days after and asked how I felt about it, and I said, oh, I'm night and day difference. He said, yeah, that's one thing that we've done. We've had 100% positive feedback on those. So that's a great sign too. The guys at the Tiffin shop had said that was great reviews. In fact, that's a big reason why I'm doing this video today, is because we mentioned that we were looking at doing a Sumo Spring upgrade in our Tiffin service video series, and we started receiving a lot of questions and inquiries about it, so there's obviously quite a few people who are interested in doing this upgrade themselves, then getting our opinion and experience with these product. And I want to mention also that we have no affiliation whatsoever with Sumo Springs or with the shop who installed this. We're just regular consumers who paid our own money for this, and for me, so glad I did this, and I would recommend it to most anyone. Just like as I mentioned, there's lots of different suspension upgrades to consider. You can look at all the different ones and see which one's best fit for you. But this particular upgrade, with how easy and quick it was to install, and how you just install them, they're just set and forget. You don't have to air them up and air them down, and you don't have to make any adjustments, and you don't have to account for weather, and they're just simple and easy, and it's amazing what an improvement you'll see in every aspect of handling, control, and confidence and comfort of driving your coach. It's really amazing, at least for our coach. Our coach is a 2012 Tiffin 35 QBA on the 22,000 pound chassis. I know that the newer version is built on a 24,000 pound chassis. I'm sure it would still be an improvement on that chassis, but on ours, it's been literally, it's night and day. And I believe you can install these on coaches back to 2008 and perhaps even earlier. So just check the specs with Sumo Springs. From what I understand, they make the Sumo Springs for all kinds of different vehicles. So whether you're driving a Class B, a Class C, or even a truck towing a fifth wheel trailer, or even a regular travel trailer, I would imagine you could see some big improvements from those as well. I recently talked to someone who had a 1-ton truck who was towing a large fifth wheel trailer, and they installed airbags on their truck and said it was an enormous difference for them. Being that the Sumo Springs is an airless airbag, I would imagine very similar results from installing these on their pickup. So, though it's great for us, I can indirectly speak to the fact that it will probably be a big improvement on any vehicle that has the option to install them. We'd certainly love to hear your comments below, and instead of in an email, it's great if you can share them down below, because then everybody gets to benefit from everyone else's opinions. So I hope you found this video informative and beneficial to you. If you did, please be sure to like it and share it with anyone else you think would be interested in seeing it. Alright, that's it for now. I'm going to get back to driving and enjoying my new suspension.